Hello. I'm going to apologise now for the quality of this video because I'm filming on my MacBook so then I can put it straight in DaVinci and edit it without having to try and figure out a way to send a large file from my phone or whatever to get it to my MacBook. So I'm not going to be looking at the camera, I'm going to be looking at myself and my notes. So it's going to look really stupid. Deal with it. So basically, I've gone through 3 books and I made a bunch of notes and I was like, there's no good rewriting this all out on my blog because that's going to take the absolute mickey. And so I thought I'd do a little video. So I hope you enjoy. So those 3 books I looked at. First one I actually had from last year because I thought it might be interesting because I did a kind of witchcrafty film. So we're making the best out of it. It's Symbols and Meanings by Jack Trezida. It's pretty much what it's called. The second book is Frightful Folklore of North America, written and illustrated by Mike Bass. It's a lot of people by bibliography. And The Treasury of Folklore by D.D. Cheney and Willow Winsham. So this was the first book I was like mainly looking at because I was like, it's got everything in it, whatever. So the first, like, it's sort of split up into like landscapes, terrain types, kind of, if that makes sense. So like there was like a section for water, there's a section for like woodlands, and there's a section for like starry skies and astrology kind of stuff. I really didn't want to do water just because I felt it would be a bit of a faff, to be honest, and I'm not like, if I was like to go out on a boat, like we've created the ideas now, I'm doing this video afterwards and you'll see it on Production Diary. Molly's going to be doing a thing out on the lake, I believe, and we're going to have a boat and stuff, and just stuff like that terrifies me. I'm not a very good swimmer, so I was like, my main thing is not going to be including that just because I think it'd be quite difficult as well, but it'll be fine. But it wasn't really what I had in mind when I was thinking folklore, folk horror. I didn't think lake, river, ocean, so I kind of skipped that section. I did read about the Selkies because I thought that would be quite a sweet one. They are pretty cool, they like shed their skin, they're kind of cool, but like the seals, and they come onto the land and they like shed their skin and they're a person, and then if someone takes their like Selkie skin they can't transform back, and like the rest of their life they'll be like trying to get their hands on that skin and get back in the darn ocean, which is interesting, but it gave me flashbacks to the movie Tusk. Bad film, really freaky though, proper body horror. Ugh. See, I didn't really want to do anything from that, but I did see this image on Pinterest. I was looking for some inspiration and I thought that'd be kind of cool, that'd be kind of cute, and it also reminded me of this shot from my FMP where the little, and like, I'll hopefully have a video on there and not just a picture, and little fishies were swimming around, and they are quite creepy because they're like just like little big, they like look like big black tadpoles, but they weren't tadpoles. I don't know what they were and I never will know because I don't know about fish. So if there's like a river or like a little pond or something where I'm shooting in the woods, I'm not one to pass it down. You get what you're given and you're gonna like it, you know what I mean? So anyway, so I sped on, ignored all that, and I went straight to the forest. Anyway, so I went straight to the forest and I went to Bears, Gods and Heroes. The start of it was very much about like religious stories containing bears and stuff like that, like how Hinduism sees bears, and then it had a few stories from France and Siberia. None of it really stuck out to me. None of it was like, ooh, scary, spooky, I can make a film from that. Nothing was like that. So I sped on. I went to the bear worship section, and in my head I was like, this has got to be good. I mean, in the film Midsummer, they like gutted that bear and then stuck that man in when he was like paralyzed or something, so gotta be something, right? Boy, was I wrong. There's a long history with bears in folklore and tales and superstitions and stuff like that, and some even believe that there must have been a bear cult back in prehistory because they found some like paintings on the rocks in southern Europe. So there was like a bear cult, maybe, apparently, and I think that would be quite cool. I love pretty like history, like early humans. I think it's kind of cool, so I want to try and fit a picture of that. And maybe that'll be featured in my film, just in the background, a little Easter egg. You'll know, no one else will know, but you'll know. Yeah, but there's also a story about the Kalevala, I'm probably butchering that hardcore, in Finland. And he seemed to be like this like god, this like guardian of the woods. And you should never call him by his actual name, as I just did. It's a bit like Voldemort, he who shall not be named. So you should call him by like Honey Palm or the King of the Forest, because he likes that apparently. And like the story about him is like it's told through like this ritual song where he was up in the heavens with the rest of like the gods and the guardians, and he was like looking down on earth, and that was apparently like very taboo for them, and it was like against one of the rules. So the like god leader of heaven was like, you shouldn't be doing that, I'm gonna send you down there. And he was sent down in like a basket with like gold and silver chains or something along those lines, and he became a guardian of the forest and its animals, which is quite nice. But yeah, most evidence of this dates from the 1600s, but like there's a bear festival that can still be witnessed in the 20th century. I don't know if that's still going on. I'll try and find pictures, because that sounds kind of interesting. I wonder if they've had some like cool costumes. Like, I'm imagining very much like, you know, like European festivals with the weird masks and stuff like that. Like, that's what our cultures sort of are. So I wonder if that's any kind of interesting thing that anyone cares about. But yeah, celebrations of bears can still be seen. Like in Russia in the 1980s Moscow Olympics, the bear was their mascot. And in Bulgaria, St. Andrew's Day is also known as Bear's Day, as it's the beginning of winter. And what they do, they'll like boil grains and then they'll toss them up the chimney or something, or maybe burn them in the chimney. One of those two. I'm guessing it says toss up, but I wonder how you do that very efficiently. And it's supposed to like bring a good harvest for the coming year. And it's also said that if the bear eats these grains, then he's not going to eat you. So it's kind of like a win-win with that one. You're just missing out on some grains. So that was kind of interesting, but it's like it wasn't bringing me any kind of like, ooh, storyline, like there's something with a bear, because I don't own a bear. We don't have bears in this country anyway, so I don't think it would work very well. I was kind of looking, I don't know what I was looking for, but I was hoping for something, and I hadn't found it, and I kept going. So yeah, it wasn't like overly helpful, but yeah, it could be referenced in my film. So I looked to the Symbols and Meanings book, which I'm pretty sure I tossed behind me, and I went to like the animals, and I went to the bear section. In Scandinavia, you have to bear with me here because it's a lot of bullet points. So in Scandinavia, the bear is seen as the incarnation of Odin, and it's and Epheus Berserkers wore bearskins into battle, so it's seen as like big, ferocious, strong. In China, again, it's masculine and courage. In northern Japan, it's an ancestral figure to the Ainu, and has similar to the mythology of the Algonquin tribe of the Native Americans, who believe he embodied the strength of the whirlwind. And I'll insert a image here of a totem that they would commonly have, like, to symbolize this. Well, I thought it was interesting, but like in Christian and Islamic religion and traditions, that the bear is seen to be cruel, lustful and vengeful, whereas all these other things are like, oh, he's a big strong guardian. I just think that's like a weird two sides, you know? And it often represents gluttony and Western art. So there's a lot of different opinions on it. Well, mainly two, which are very similar, but like there's one side where he's a strong big guardian and he helps and protects the forest and the animals, and the other side is he's evil, nasty, and he's gonna get you. But again, this wasn't really helpful. It might be good for some nice little Easter eggs in the background, but it wasn't really helping me find a story that inspired me to continue and use this like the main feature in my film. So I was like, it's not gonna work. So it was interesting to read about, but overall it hasn't helped me. Like I said, symbolism maybe, but it's just not gonna happen. I think in my idea he might believe that the first sound he hears, I'll write about it in my production diary, you'll see it and you'll understand what I'm banging on about. He will think it's like a bear or a wolf or something along those lines. So then it can be like input, and he thinks like, oh, I'm gonna get him this vicious, cruel thing, because it's probably more in our culture. We'd probably more, because it's a very heavily Christian country, we're probably more likely to believe that he would be evil, gluttonous, and vicious than we would think him as a symbol of strength. But other than that, hadn't inspired me. So then I went to the section which is Virgins, Huntsmen, and Jesus Christ, the quest for the unicorn. I had so much excitement for this section, you don't actually understand, and I was so disappointed at how boring it was. Yeah, I didn't want a unicorn in my film. I thought there maybe be a bit more about, like, in a lot of folk horror films, especially cult ones, you see like the virgin is a sacrifice, like you need to be a virgin to be sacrificed to the Lord or whoever. And I thought I'd go more into that. No, it was genuinely just about unicorns, and unicorns are too cool and too cutesy to put in a horror film. So, and I don't want to make a scary unicorn, that sounds really sad. They're pretty. They're not real, just to break it to you. This is so boring, I really apologise, I'm trying to keep it fun, but... Anyway, so I finally made my way to the Leshy. It's a Slavic thing. Here's a picture from the book. This is the reason I was like skimming through the book trying to find any titles that like got me, and I was like, I wouldn't have like thought, let me look at the Leshy, until I saw this picture. Spooky guy, right? So he's a Slavic... It's a Slavic protector, but the word that they use is a tutelary, or maybe that's just a word that I don't know, so I had to Google it. But he's a spirit of the woods, and in Ukraine he's a guardian of wolves and all of their animals, but others say he's a slave to like his favourite animal, which is, going back in time, the bear. The bear. See? He haunts me. Anyway, so they hibernate in winter, similar to the bear, and is thought to be controlled by the woodsman, which means nothing to me, or the devil. This guy is getting spooky, you see what I mean? So I was getting quite interested, so I kept going. He's likened to satyrs, you know, the people who are half goat, half person. So he's like human, so they're like human above the waist and like goat beyond the bottom. This book says they're very similar to that, and they do have like the goat's feet and stuff like that. But a lot that I've seen on other research says they're more like a tree, which would make sense. He's a woods guardian. So, but he says they have like horns and claws and like a bushy beard, which is usually seen to be made out of moss. And they are shapeshifters, they're little tricksters. They can change their size or form at will, so they can be as tall as the largest tree of their woods or as short, tiny as the shortest blade of grass. And he's said to seem like, when you're looking at him from a distance, he's said to seem like absolutely massive. But then as you get closer, he seems to be smaller, which is sort of like the opposite of how everything else would work. Like obviously when you look at something really far away, it looks tiny in your line of view. As you get closer, it gets bigger. He's the opposite because he's supernatural and freaky. And he can appear in human form, but the way to tell that it's a Leshy is they'll have no eyebrows and no eyelashes, and they will often wear their shoes on their wrong feet. Some say, like some of them apparently only have one eye, not all, some. There's a common feature between them. They've got clove feet of fawns, goats, or obviously as the imagery of the devil. He often has like goat's feet, he's part goat, for whatever reason. And in some regions, he has wings and a tail with like a little black fur tuft on the end. And others say he like wears like complete white and has like constantly swollen eyes. Another way to tell, like, you know, I said he wears his shoes on the wrong feet often, places where like if they have a certain like robe in their clothing and say it gets wrapped from the right shoulder down to the left of their hip or something along those lines, they would wear it the opposite way. I'm not sure if this is because they don't know or they can't directly like depict what another person looks like and they're just not sure, but or maybe he just finds it a bit silly and funky, but it's the ways to tell if one's a leshy. So the reason why they become evil is if you are uninvited in the woods, they're gonna start like shrieking laughter, like screaming, clapping, howling, like warning you, get out of my woods, you. And like if you keep going, you're gonna get lost in the woods, because what he does, he'll like lure you in. They can like mimic people's voices or mimic the look of someone you know. As I said, he's a shapeshifter, and like lure you in, or he can sound like animals, and he can sound like tree branches creaking or the leaves gusting in the wind, sorry, not wisping. And he'll change your surroundings, so you have no idea where you are, and you will get lost, and you will never be seen again. So what can you do? But yeah, I said all that. But yeah, it's also said that illness comes to those who like come across a leshy. It doesn't say what kind of illness, I might have to do a bit more research on that. But they also apparently sometimes abduct women to marry them. And they'll also take any children that like are wandering in the forest or have been like cursed by their parents. So that's quite nice of him. See, they're not all bad. And they said they are like commonly known and like famous for inflicting wrath on farms and like sucking milk from the herds of cows. So farmers, in retaliation from the Olenetsky district, used to sacrifice a cow annually in order to the Lechy to ensure welfare for their cows. The cows did nothing, Mr. Lechy, why are you doing this, you know? Poor little guys. But those are like, as I said, like if you're uninvited in the woods, it's not just if you're uninvited, it's if you're like over hunting, if you're taking too much wood, you take what you need and you get out. That's his idea of the woods, like he's protecting you don't need more than you need. He's preventing overconsumption. But another way to like enter the woods and not kind of get battled by the man is you would say a prayer as you enter the woods, or you would leave offerings such as bread or tobacco, and then you'll be safe when you enter in the woods because you're giving something to get something. They often live alone or with their wives and children. Their wives will be called lesovika. I don't know how to pronounce these things, I'm not Slavic. And they are said to sometimes, maybe, if they're not, no one's really sure because obviously it's a superstition, it's a folklore tale, but they would sometimes live in a hut in the middle of the woods, like deep in the woods. And they're not against battling their own kind. They'll fight over they'll fight over the land, like who owns what and how much you own and stuff like that. So like they'll carry their clubs to like wage the war, and like when they're fighting, like storms would be like poof, and wind would be like whoosh, and that's how people explained like sudden crazy storms at the time. They'd say, oh, must be some leshies having a scrap in the woods. But they're also, which I find a bit silly, notorious gamblers, but they don't gamble with money. They don't have money. They have squirrels, which I think is a bit weird, seeing as you're meant to be protecting the forest, yet you're like killing off these squirrels to play cards, because they play cards, but they don't. They have to take out the clubs, as it, for some reason, to them, resembles too closely to the Christian cross for their liking. So yeah, they're really against any, like they're really deterred by any kind of Christian symbol or prayer or anything that is symbolic of the cross, etc. And if you want to know how to summon a leshy in your spare time, you're meant to cut down a bunch of young trees. Birch is preferable, and I'm going to go into why this makes me mad in a minute. And you place them in a circle with the tops touching, and you'll go stand in the centre of that circle, and you'll make sure you have no Christian symbols or anything like that, iconography on you, near you, at the ready, you know, and you will call for the grandfather of the forest, and he should come up to you. I don't know why you want him, but maybe have a natter. So I thought this would be a pretty cool idea. And I think the scariest thing in films are things you can't see, especially if you would, so I like to imagine that like this creature, the Leshy, would be hiding in the woods. And I thought, well, it's like a common day issue, like deforestation, overhunting, like wrecking the planet, ruining wildlife, global warming. So I think he would be a really good creature feature, folklore tale, for something like that. So I really like this. I thought it was really helpful. There's a lot of useless information in there that's just like a little bit fun and interesting, like the gambling bit. That won't be referenced in my film, but it's just something, isn't it? So I was inspired. But I wondered, as I said, why birch trees? Why birch trees? Why are we sticking these in the circle? Why are these preferable? So I looked up in the symbols book and I was like, what is so special about birch? So, they are sacred to the greatest Germanic gods. It's the cosmic tree of Central Asia, the protective tree of Northern Europe and Asia, and the nomads used to use it as like the central pole of their yurts, as it was supposed to, as had sacred meaning in shamanistic rites of human ascent to the spiritual world. So if it's supposed to deflect and protect and be strong and like get rid of evil, why on earth are you calling upon a Leshy using birch? Like, yes, they are a guardian, but for the most part they don't want you there. So surely the birch would deter them from coming to you if Christian iconography would. So this confused me a bit. I feel like the reason birch is because they are mostly, for the most part, seen as a guardian of the forest, so a protective birch would be okay. And I'm sure cutting down the youngling trees would irk him off and make him mad anyway. So I'm guessing that's why you cut them down. But it was a bit of an odd one. So that was just my pure curiosity. It didn't help me come up with any more ideas. It didn't help me with my project. That was just my pure curiosity. So then, went to the next section. I kept going. I was like, I wonder if there's anything else that I can say. Like, I really like this Leshy, but I wonder if there's something else, something cooler, something better that I haven't given it a chance yet, you know? So I went to the women who turn into trees. So, as in a lot of fairy tales, such as, I'm pretty sure I've took a screenshot of the podcast and put it on my blog. There's a fairy tale where a woman ran into the woods to escape the evil king who kept sort of sexually abusing the young women of the town, so they all moved away, but she had to stay to help look after her grandma because they couldn't afford to move away. And she ran into the woods, the evil woods that everyone told her to stay away from, like her grandma told her to stay away from it, and she prayed to the woods to help her when she was trying to run away from the king when he spotted her. And one of the branches fell on the king in response to her prayers, and the trees protected her, and then it also like attacked, kind of like fell on and injured his guardsmen that ran after him to try and get her, because clearly she did something to that tree to make it hurt him. So yeah, woods in fairy tales are often a sanctuary for women and anyone others trying to escape maltreatment, abuse, or murderous intent. So the story of the women who turn into trees comes from I can't remember if it's Greek or the other one, so you're gonna have to pretend. I said the right one, okay? But anyway, Apollo slandered Cupid during some like sporting game, and Cupid was having none of that. This is where the story originated. This is the story of where the women came into turning trees comes from. So Apollo dissed Cupid's sporting skills, and Cupid was having none of it. He was like, how dare you nasty pasty. So Cupid used 2 arrows. One he shot at Apollo, and it had a gold tip, and it made him fall in love with a nymph. And then the other arrow he shot at the nymph, but this one had a lead tip. That meant she was gonna hate him. She did not like him anymore. She was like, Apollo, So during a woodland sporting event, she realised she couldn't beat Apollo in this race, and he also wouldn't leave her alone. She couldn't escape his advances, and so she called her to her father, who was the river god. And to help her, he turned her into a tree. So she started feeling like her muscles couldn't bend anymore. She started feeling like herself becoming really solid, and she turned into a tree. And when Apollo went up to her to like touch her, grab her, and be like, "You're mine," like, what's happening to you, bro? like the tree would like move away from him, because she really didn't want to be around him yet. He was really going for it. And when she fully turned into a tree, Apollo claimed her as his tree and vowed to worship her forever. So she never really did escape, but at least she got to be a tree. That's kind of cool. And she was blessed with eternal youth, so she is an evergreen tree, so she would never die. She would always stay this young tree. So that was pretty, it wasn't very inspiring, but I thought it could be something cool if you saw some people running around in the woods and they suddenly disappear and like their faces are in the trees, because I saw this picture. I'm interested. I am going to use in my final film, but it's not going to be inspired as much by this. Maybe a little bit actually, because it kind of is. But it's from something else I saw where like people's souls can get trapped in the woods, like the trees in the woods, and then like whatever. And I thought a great way to symbolize that would be if like their faces, like those faces in the tree. But anyway, other than that, poor lady never escaped Apollo, that rat. It's also said that witches were also said to be able to turn into trees, and there's a story of Sirisham in Northamptonshire. A man cut a branch from a tree for, I'm pretty sure for his son. He wanted a stick, so he cut this branch from a tree, and then later on they saw this woman and she had a bandage on her arm, such as where the tree just got cut. So she was, I actually can't read my own writing, this is why this video is so bad. So they saw her with a bandage on her arm, and they basically did, you know, the witch trial, I'm pretty sure, where they like dunked underwater and they're like, oh, if they float and they like survive when we pull them back up, she's a witch, we'll kill her. And basically if she doesn't and she drowns, she wasn't a witch, and they killed her anyway because she was dead because she was drowned. So they did that to her and she came out guilty, probably because they drowned her. Or maybe she came, I don't know, maybe she just was really good at holding her breath. And it was also in Wales in the 19th century, it's common belief if you can cut an elder tree, if you would cut any kind of elder tree, that the bark would begin to bleed. Whereas in Stratfordshire, it was believed it would raise the devil himself if an elder tree was cut. So these elder trees, they're pretty evil, they're gonna get you, they're gonna bleed, or they're gonna get you with the devil. So this is sort of why I took inspiration in my film, where like it's gonna turn up this big elder tree and there's gonna be these faces etched into them because people have, like, their souls have been trapped. And then the Leshy's gonna get him. And that's all my notes for today. But with the ideas that I've spoken about throughout, I went to, I'm gonna read out of it directly, this vital folklore book. And there's a section in here, if I can find the page number, where it talks about hunting superstition. And yes, this book is more aimed at North America. I think it goes like even to like Mexico and Puerto Rico though. Superstitions, page 103. It's a bit of a fun way to show it as well, because it's not really, this is all it has on it, so I'm going to do some further research. But I do remember from primary school when we did a project on Native Americans, it was said when they'd go hunting they would like keep, I'm pretty sure they, don't quote me on this, they would keep eye contact with whatever animal they killed to ensure that their spirit got to ascend and they wouldn't be trapped wandering lost. So I thought this is kind of like goes towards the idea of overhunting. And so in this book it says like, honour your previous hunts, remove your hat, make an offering, pause for a moment for reflection, kill no other animal than which you are hunting. The spirits will be confused and lost and maybe even follow you home. Yeah, take a moment to honour the life that they gave you when crossing at spots where an animal was killed during a previous hunt. So it's sort of like, you should honour your kills. You shouldn't just be killing everything in sight and thinking, yeah, I am that guy or that woman. I'm doing it as a guy though. You should constantly be worshipping what you've just murdered. Like, you've taken a life, take what you need, take no more. And we don't do that. We are living in a very capitalist society. We're greedy, we're over-consuming, we're killing the planet and the climate because of it. So I just thought that could be quite an interesting idea for it. But yeah, that was all my notes, and I think those books really helped. I was getting really worried, but I managed to figure something out, and I've come up with a story now, and I've taken inspiration from all sorts of places like I said I wanted to make it more mine, make it more original, and I'm quite excited for it, and I'm really glad I looked at all this. I made all my notes, so I really feel like I know what I'm talking about in preparation for my pitch, and even when I'm making the film and the storyboard and the script, like I know what I'm going to be going on about. I've done my research on each different thing. I've figured out ways where I can connect them. There's a few things I might throw in there just as like in the background Easter eggs, like little throwaway pieces, but because they're not the main focus, they won't have to link as hard. But the rest of them, they all link, and I've come up with a good. So I hope you really enjoyed this. I know I did. No, you're probably really bored and want me to shut up now, so I will. I'll put the transcript below, I'll put the photos below because I'm guessing you need that. Bye bye.